What's up, Met fans? Welcome back. Talking Mets and Rob. How's everybody doing? Before I get to talk about the MLB Power Rankings and the three big sports outlets that talk about sports and did the Power Rankings, Sports Illustrated, MLB Network, and ESPN. Don't forget, guys, if you enjoyed this video, hit on that like button. If you enjoy all my content, want to see more, want to get notified when I post my videos and when I go live, hit on that subscribe button, everybody. Alright, guys, so the MLB Power Rankings came out the last couple of days, and a lot of these sports outlets basically showed no respect for our New York Mets. And I'm not surprised, because it just seems like the Mets don't get respect around the league, with all the injuries, with all the times where they could easily fell apart and just went into oblivion and be in last place basically in the division. They could have easily done that, but teams that are fully healthy in these power rankings are basically higher than the Mets, and it makes absolutely no sense to me. Now, when it comes to the MLB Power Rankings, what it usually should mean is not just based on record, but it's based on what does the team look like? Are they performing well? And every other aspect that goes into a power ranking. And what pisses me off, and I know pisses off a lot of Met fans, is that the lack of respect that ESPN, Sports Illustrated, and MLB Network has shown to the New York Mets. And when it comes to these three sports outlets, I understand why they probably don't respect the Mets, because let's be honest, when it comes to Sports Illustrated and ESPN, do they really basically focus on baseball as much as they should? With MLB Network, the same thing. It just didn't make sense to me why they can't show a little bit more respect to the Mets, especially with the bench mob and just the lack of starters that they had on this team the last basically month and a half. And it's just outrageous that they're not showing the respect that the Mets do deserve. Now, I'm not saying they should be in the top 3, but they should at least be in the top 5 or 6. And we're going to get into it for each of ESPN, Sports Illustrated, and MLB Network's rankings. And we're going to see where the Mets lie based on their power rankings. So first off, we're going to start with Sports Illustrated. Now, Sports Illustrated MLB Power Rankings have San Diego Padres at number 1, Tampa Bay Rays at number 2. Okay, fine. And then when you get down and down and down, you see the teams that are above the Mets. The Toronto Blue Jays, the St. Louis Cardinals, the New York Yankees are ahead of the New York Mets in the power rankings, where that is absolutely ridiculous. The Mets are 6 games over 500. The Toronto Blue Jays about 3 or 4 games over 500. The Yankees are only 2 games over 500, and they're in 4th place in their division. It's just outrageous that Sports Illustrated has no respect for the New York Mets. They're not even in the top 10. They couldn't even break the top 10, which is just absolutely ridiculous. And I just don't understand the lack of respect that Sports Illustrated is showing in the MLB Power Rankings for Week 9, Week 10 of the season, starting in June. It's just absolutely ridiculous. And, you know, they don't really go into detail of how they do the power rankings, but if you go by division leader, the way the Mets have played with the lack of starters they had in this lineup is an absolute outrage for Sports Illustrated to not have the Mets at least in the top 10. I would think at least in the top 6. I mean, how many teams are leading the division that are on top of the MLB rankings? You'll see the Padres, who I believe are a game out of first place. You see the Tampa Bay Rays, who lead. The White Sox, who lead. The Red Sox, who are in second. The Dodgers, who lead. It's the top 5 teams are at least leading the division or in second place, close to the division lead. It's absolutely ridiculous that Sports Illustrated actually puts the Mets ranked 13th power rankings wise when they lead the NL East. They should at least be in the top 6. You lead the NL East division, and you don't get no respect. No matter how bad the teams are in your division, If it was the Yankees, for example, who are leading the division, who has an AL East that is as bad as the Mets division, they would get all the respect in the world. They'd probably be in the top 3. The Yankees are still getting respect, and they're in 4th place in their division. They look lifeless. They can't score runs. They don't look good at all. They got swept by the worst team in baseball, in the Detroit Tigers, and they're ranked 8th in the power rankings. Makes absolutely no sense. So you can see who Sports Illustrated favors, yet the NL East division leader with a totally different team than the team they started with on opening day, the New York Mets, are ranked 13th based on the Sports Illustrated MLB Power Rankings. So that's an absolute joke for that sports outlet in Sports Illustrated. Sports Illustrated should be ashamed of themselves. Next, we're going to go to MLB Network. As you can see right here, they got Tampa Bay, Chicago White Sox, San Diego Padres, LA Dodgers, San Francisco Giants. So, when based on the Sports Illustrated and MLB Network, their top 6 or 7 is basically just the same teams, just in different orders. But look where the Mets are. The Mets are ranked 12th in the MLB Power Rankings based on MLB Network. Yet again, the lack of respect that the Mets are getting. It's an absolute joke. Now, why would Sports Illustrated and MLB Network put teams who are leading or close to leading the division in 2nd place in their division in basically the top 7 or 8, but yet the NL East division leaders, the New York Mets, are ranked 12th and 13th respectively by MLB Network and Sports Illustrated? It just does not make sense, and the lack of respect should piss off Met fans, and it actually have. If you've seen on Twitter or any type of social media outlet you can go to, you can see Met fans are absolutely outraged by this. Now, it's not the end-all, be-all. It doesn't matter. If the Mets keep on winning, nobody really gives a damn about what MLB Network, Sports Illustrated, ESPN puts as a power ranking for Major League Baseball. Really doesn't matter. As long as they keep on winning, it really doesn't matter. But it's just the lack of respect that the Mets are getting from Sports Illustrated and MLB Network. And it boggles my mind why what people look at and these outlets look at for a power ranking. Scoring runs, leading the division, isn't that the end all be all? Leading the division, is it basically the focus and the goal for any team during the season is to win the division? But yet the lack of respect. And granted, there's no NL East teams above the Mets, which if that would have been even more of an outrageous thing. But at the end of the day, you got the Blue Jays, you got the Yankees, you got the Giants, who are basically mostly healthy for that matter, who are not leading the division. The Giants are in 3rd place in their division. The Blue Jays are in 3rd place in their division. The Yankees are in 4th place in the division, but yet these teams are ahead of the New York Mets, who are leading the NL East. And I don't think it matters who is in your division, because like I said earlier, if the Yankees were in 1st place in the AL East and they had teams like the NL East has right now, bad teams, the Yankees would get all the respect in the world and probably be in the top 3 in the power rankings on everyone's board. So the lack of respect that MLB Network and Sports Illustrated are showing in the MLB Power Rankings to the New York Mets, who are basically have at one point had 17 starters and bench players on the injured list, and had 90% of their roster and their starting lineup from opening day on the injured list, and Francisco Lindor and Dominic Smith were the only one left at one point in the season in this lineup. The lack of respect that MLB Network and Sports Illustrated have shown is absolutely ridiculous, and they should be embarrassed. Absolutely embarrassed. It makes no sense. It's a joke. This is not being a Mets fan and being biased. It's just not many teams can have that many injuries and still not just be close to a division lead. They're in the division lead by 3.5 games and have a 6-game lead in the loss column with the amount of injuries they had for basically a month and a half now. It's an absolute joke, and MLB Network and Sports Illustrated should be embarrassed of themselves. So that is MLB Network's ranked for the New York Mets, which is ranked number 12. Not even in the top 10. 12. And Sports Illustrated at 13. Absolutely ridiculous, guys. Lastly, is ESPN MLB Power Rankings. And they look like this. Now, once again, 1 through 6, 1 through 7 is basically the same teams that you've seen with ESPN, with Sports Illustrated and MLB Network. But at least they put the New York Mets in the top 10, as you can see here. They didn't put the Toronto Blue Jays. The Yankees are not even a part of the top 10, and they shouldn't be. I'm sorry. When you have a 3rd and 4th place team in the top 10 of your rankings, you should even be able to be allowed to do an MLB Power Rankings. Because it makes no sense. How do you have a division leader not at least in the top 10 in your Power Rankings? At least ESPN, they get a lot of backfire with a lot of baseball fans because their broadcast is terrible, and they're mostly NBA, and they're not really focused on Major League Baseball and other sports. Their broadcasting is terrible. When they broadcast the game, it's terrible. But at the end of the day, at least they realize they showed a little bit more respect than Sports Illustrated and MLB Network to put them in the top 10 when they're leading a division. Look, the San Diego Padres and the Dodgers, 1-2 in the division in the NL West, are in the top 3. The White Sox are leading the division. The Rays are leading the division. They're 2-4. The Giants are in 3rd place. Granted, they're playing very well, but they're in 3rd place in the NL West. It's crazy to me. It makes absolutely no sense, but at least ESPN showed a little bit more respect than Sports Illustrated and MLB Network, ranking them number 10 in the MLB Power Rankings based on ESPN. So, just look at this, guys. The New York Mets are ranked 13th, 12th, and 10, respectively, based on the MLB Power Rankings from Sports Illustrated, ESPN, and MLB Network. One thing I have to say, at least ESPN showed a little bit of respect to the Mets, but to all you guys who made these rankings for MLB Network, Sports Illustrated, and ESPN, you should be ashamed of yourselves. No respect given to the New York Mets with all the injuries they had. But as we know, if it was the Yankees, the beloved Yankees of MLB, or it was a team like the Dodgers who had all these injuries but still led the division and have a 3.5 game lead and 6 games in the loss column lead, they would be showing all the love, and they would probably be in the top 3 of their rankings if they had all these injuries. They would say, oh, well, the Dodgers are at it again. Oh, the Yankees are at it again. The New York Mets deserve a lot more respect. And even though one outlet, ESPN, put them in the top 10, they should at least be in the top 5, at the very least, knowing that they're leading the division. It's an absolute joke. It's an embarrassment to baseball. It's an embarrassment to ESPN. It's embarrassment to Sports Illustrated. And I am calling MLB Network, ESPN, and Sports Illustrated out. And explain your reasoning why the New York Mets are at least not in the top 5 or 6 in the MLB Power Rankings of Week 9 and 10 of the MLB season. So that is my opinion and my thoughts and the rankings for MLB Network, ESPN, and Sports Illustrated. I want to thank you guys for watching. Don't forget, guys, if you enjoyed this video, hit on that like button. If you enjoy all my content, want to see more, want to get notified when I post my videos and when I go live, hit on that subscribe button, everybody. I want to thank you guys for watching, and as always, let's go Mets.